Hey there everybody, Mazrock here, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different than what I've normally done. There's plenty of guides out there for how to write your rotation, how to do your rotations, or not how to write, how to play your spec, but there's not a lot of guides, and there's not a lot of videos on how to learn a spec. And I've decided to pick up Fire Mage, which has its own trials and tribulations, and it's an incredibly complex spec that takes a lot of dedication to actually be good at, especially in 10.1. There are some changes coming in 10.1.5, but we are going to talk about that and kind of the weird things that I've done to start learning. I am by no means any good at this spec yet, but I am trying. So stick with me here, let's talk about Fire Mage and some of the trials and tribulations of being a DPS player in Dragonflight. Before we do get into it though, please do like, comment, and subscribe. It goes such a long way towards helping out the channel. There is a Patreon link down below. This is going to be an exclusive early access for my patrons as well. There is a Discord link and a Twitch link as well. Go on by, check that out. Alright, so number one, a little bit of history about myself if you're brand new to this channel. I have always been into tanking into World of Warcraft. It's basically been my go-to, and I've dabbled in Warlock. There are several seasons where I have main Warlock in the little bit of heroic and mythic raiding and, you know, that sort of stuff that I've done, but I've always fallen back on tanking. And when I created the channel, if you've watched any of my other videos, it was to help people get into tanking, helping people have the information that you need to take those first steps to get in, because so many videos show you, hey, this is what you need to do to play like the best, but where do you start, right? So we're going to take that theme, that focus, and put that into, you know, something else as well, and expand the channel and grow a little bit. So that's a little bit of history about myself here. So when I DPS, I have the mentality of a tank, and I've also done healing. Like, I've played all three specs, but that's sort of the mentality I have in Mythic Plus and things like that, on what can I do to be the most useful person that I can be in this run while still doing incredibly good damage to the best of my ability on maybe what could be an underrated spec. I've always rooted for the underdogs. For example, like my mains, my two main tanks in Season 1 of Shadowlands were Prot Warrior and Blood DK, and if you know anything about them, nobody wanted them at all, ever. Nobody. So I have a tendency to try and pick something up and try and make it good. Get those compliments from people going, man, I wasn't expecting this run to go as smooth as possible with this spec or whatever. And have fun with it. Now, the first thing that I noticed when I hit 70 and I got a little bit of gear, you know, get some item level, get into LFR, start getting that rotation down, is the complexity of this spec of Fire Mage is actually crazy. Now, so I currently have an Evoker at 440 item level. I have an Affliction Warlock, but Affliction, as complex as it can be, I've played it for a long time, and it's always been my favorite Warlock spec, so to me that came a little bit more naturally than Fire Mage, but it's a different sort of complexity, right? Everything about Fire Mage is about your cooldowns, how you handle your cooldowns, how you plan your upcoming cooldowns as well, to be able to manage that combustion time so much better, right? And to be more efficient at it. It is also incredibly aggressive. I hate it when people pull for me as the tank, and I'm sitting here going like, pull, pull, pull. Will you pull? Will you pull? I'm about to lose my Sun King's Blessing, which, by the way, I think is an entirely way too toxic ability to have in Mythic Plus. For pugs, it's crazy. But it just came into the focus and the rotation, which then put me back in into the tank mindset of how would I deal with this DPS spec being in my group? And that would be to constantly be chain pulling and to find the most efficient route that just never stopped, right? If I'm on Affliction Warlock, for example, I like to plant myself, do a big pull, and let me sit there and blast. Destro Lock, same kind of thing, right? Just keep everything in one spot and let the rain of fires come down. Affliction's kind of the same. Just let me get my 2-second Seed of Corruption cast off. Please don't outrange me. I'm trying. This cast takes forever. But with Fire Mage, I want, like, you know, don't get me wrong, the style of pull is great and I love it, but I already need to be on to the next one. I don't have time for a breather. Like, let's go. Sun King's Blessing is about up. I'm going to lose combustion. Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. And those are two very different varying styles of DPS, right? You have the more brain dead Zug Zug Unga groups, which can be stuff like Fury Warrior, Survival Hunter, Ret Paladin, and I don't mean this in any disrespect at all, please don't get at me in the comments going whatever, but those DPS specs are a lot easier to do, to keep up. If you look at Season 3 Survival Hunter, I'm sorry, but that spec was so easy to do insane damage with 2 buttons. And you have other specs out here who have like 11 to certain very complex rotations that you need to get exactly right. And if you screw one thing up, you're doing tank damage. I'm sorry, but these two things don't correlate. So you have the kind of easy, can burst up front, outright. And those are kind of, if Ret Paladin's a lot like this as well. Like when I'm on my Evoker and I start my ramp up, which yes, there is a lot of upfront damage with Evoker, but the big portion where you end up at is actually about 20 to 30 seconds. Like, from what I've noticed with Ret Paladins, is they burst and then it starts coming down. Evoker starts strong, brings up, and then slowly builds up from there, and then has a pretty hefty drop-off once everything's kind of cooled off, right? And kind of goes down, but can go very, very quickly. And, you know, you have things like Affliction Lock, which is going to start low, but is just going to ramp and ramp and ramp. And once you can really get that ramp, all that ramp fully set up, you can just end with stupid amounts of damage with proper dot management and things like that. So you do have these different styles of DPS, and then you have Fire Mage, which is like constantly go, go, go. I want a lot of targets. I want to be combusting all the time, which has laid into rotation issues. How do I keep my Sun King's Blessing going? Which, you know, there's been a few things, like, for example, in Freehold, if I don't want it to drop, there's some dummies kicking around here and there. I've hit them. It's not to pad my damage, it's to make sure that I don't lose Sun King's Blessing, because I don't want to start from scratch again if I don't have to, with no combustions and a combustion on cooldown, where if I can just kind of play it lightly and game that timer on Sun King's Blessing a bit, I can actually start the next pull, the boss or whatever, with the Sun King's Blessing kind of ready to go if I time it correctly, and then that way I can just be more efficient to my group by doing more damage and not doing tank damage, because I let all of my buffs fall off, right? But also, the way that you have to plan everything out within your combustion, it is crazy and absolutely wild. The way that you have to, like, watch the travel times of your spells, because when do I have time to get this Fire Blast and Pyroblast off before the Fireball hits the target, giving me another crit Fire Blast, or, you know, things like that. And the way that you have to manage that is, like, really, really crazy, right? Because some of your spells are instant, some of them have travel time, and the way that you have to kind of take all of this into account is crazy. I could be mismanaging that or thinking too much into that. I've looked into some guides as well on how to kind of manage those sorts of things, but, you know, whatever. But then there's also having to weave that utility into the rotation, right? We just came out of Incorporeal, and unfortunately with Pugs, a lot of people just ignore it and let other people do it, and it really sucks for me to, you know, cast Polymorph in my combustion window that I'm in, but I'd rather spend, you know, a second and a half casting Polymorph and keeping the rest of my combustion than losing it all to a 50% damage nerf, right? Like, what's the worst one here? It's obviously spending the cast time, but it really, really sucks for me to have to do that. And then people at the end of the dungeon are like, man, like, your damage is a little low. Like, dude, I know. It's 5 combustion windows in a row where I'm dealing with Incorporeal because none of you want to press a global. I'm losing all of my damage because my entire amount of DPS comes within these small little windows that I could have to try and game as much as possible, and you guys don't want to help. What do you do at that point, right? What do you do to balance utilities while learning an incredibly complex rotation? I can't just go in, press 1 or 2 buttons, and hit for 500k. That's not how it works. There are plenty of different DPS playstyles in the game, and I'm learning how varied that actually is. The identity of a spec on whether it's upfront, you know, kind of sustain or ramped damage versus is everything entirely in their cooldowns and 10 seconds is the most precious thing in the world, and then they're kind of chill for a little while. All of these different little things, all, you know, once you start mix matching these per spec, I'm noticing the variety of DPS in this game that I never really understood to that depth before. You kind of get the basics of, okay, here there's this and that, but really how deep it goes and how much work has to go into being good. Number one, I'm sorry to any Fire Mage that's ever come into one of my pugs, and I might have been a little bit mean to you for low DPS. My God, is this spec hard to learn how to play properly with a tank that you don't know, with a route that you don't know, right? That, to me, has been the biggest factor of, holy crap, some of my best runs on Fire Mage so far have been with a tank that I'm like, okay, yeah, pull here, do this, okay, cool, we got the right down, let's do that. And I can fully plan out all the little things, and I know what's coming next. And when that doesn't happen in a pug, I am lost on cooldown management at times, and I have absolutely lost so much DPS and have almost become borderline toxic sitting in my own living room of like, okay, come on, go, I'm about to lose my Sun King's Blessing, go, and I lost it. Cool. Well, I'm doing below tank damage for a while, and I can start understanding why you get toxic at times. I still don't think it's right, but I also think people don't understand. I, as a tank, never understood that until I was in that shoe, right? I was in those shoes. And I can understand where and why you lose so much damage. I can understand why some people pull ahead for the tank as a Fire Mage sometimes. I still don't think you should do it. I know it sucks, but I don't think you should do it. I'm a tank, and I really fucking hate it, and I think I hate that more than I like my Fire Mage DPS. But I can understand why the temptation is there. I get it, and there's these complexities that are coming around with, like I said, that weaving in of utilities to make sure that, let's say, an incorporeal doesn't go off. And one of the things that I've actually found myself doing a lot lately, I think this is a fun little trick that I've kind of done for Mage, was I hit Alter Time, I blink right up to a pack, hit Fire Breath, and that gives me a next thing on my hot streak, and then I can hit Alter Time and end up back to where my Rune of Power was, in case if I need to stop something and I don't have to lose a lot of damage. You can kind of do that in a quick sequence, and you're still kind of putting along and doing really, really well while having some utility going, right? I'm really happy Rune of Power is going to be gone. My God, I can't wait. Rune of Power is atrocious to play around, and I really hate it. My God, that thing is the mechanic finder. Like, that is a goddamn radar, sonar, announcer, bullhorn for mechanics. Like, you put down your Rune of Power, it is guaranteed getting a mechanic. Guaranteed. And I know the trick, go over to one side, left or right or front or back or whatever, and then move when a mechanic happens. But, like, sometimes it's just like, you're chosen now. And I'm like, dude, I just put this down. Like, fuck. There goes 40% of my damage. Oh, I'm so happy it's going away. So happy it's going away. I'm very excited for the new 10.1.5 Fire Mage, which I am going to be playing, of course, live on stream next week with it going on. I'm going to be, of course, playing all of the other stuff. But that is the first little bit. Do you guys like this? Do you like this style of video? Is this something you want to see me continue? Do you want to see me kind of still document my progression of Fire Mage learning and how to be better and kind of keep you up with the score? It's currently, you know, I'm really low IO. I'm like the 1500 or something maybe. And like, I know I'm around 419, 420. I am a little bit higher in bags, but they're really off stats, breaking tier and moving things around. So like, I basically just like, okay, this gives me tier, this gives me that, this gives me the highest item level with all of the pieces that I could have, right? So if you want to if you want to see this updated, if you want to see me live on stream, you can come by, check it out on stream. But if you want me to do these kind of update videos on how I'm learning to learn Fire Mage, let me know. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. Have yourself a good one. Happy tanking.